ReleaseWire helps businesses connect with interested journalists and bloggers. Check out the link in the description to save 25% on your first press release.
Admiral, radar shows that we have liberals approaching at 3 o'clock, and libertarians at 9 o'clock, and conservatives at 6 o'clock. They're coming from every angle, every viewpoint. Oh, it's Political Radar with your hosts, Rhonda and Elliot.
Hey, all you political junkies, welcome to Political Radar, the best 30 minutes of unscripted and uncensored political talk you will hear all day. Episode 57 brings us to another episode of talking about the pool, right?
I think just about the last one.
I think it might be.
I mean, unless they resurrected from the dead.
So we're going to get to that. I'm going to introduce our guest, Andrew Hetzel III, who
Hello.
is a citizen of Green Bay. Yes?
Correct. Live on the east side.
And he experienced his first local government meeting last night. How was it?
I thought it was great. I'd heard a lot of interesting stories about the protocol and the how they behave, but I basically went in saying I got to start somewhere, and I wanted to kind of be a sponge. And I mean, there were some silly moments, like when the guy threw the binder, and then the plans fell on the floor. It was kind of foreshadowing in a way in my head.
When Chris Weary threw the binder on the floor?
Yeah,
that was high drama.
I guess.
So as somebody who doesn't, you don't know those guys very well, right?
No, I need to learn.
No. But what I'm wondering is what, as kind of an outsider, what is your perception of all of that?
Well, from what I heard, that's a thing from local media and whatnot and just other people. You hear there's a lot of dysfunction. And that's basically all you hear. They're not getting anything done. There's delays. There's bickering. I think some of that's true. But kind of my thing was if you want to get involved, which I do on some level, you got to start somewhere. You can't really start going to Washington, D.C. and work your way back. Start local.
Unless you're Obama.
Yeah. Superstar on the rise. Start local. And I keep using this, but see how the sausage is made. You got to see the process.
The Green Bay sausage.
Yeah, and I mean, if that's all you know, that's all I know. That's how you assume city government or local government works. I'm sure it's better at times. Maybe it's worse. Even that. Some people are like, oh, this is tame, and I'm like, okay. But I made a comment that I just appreciate everybody's passion. Of all walks of life and ages, and talking about the pool and just all that. I think that's great. I wasn't going to go in there and rip off a shirt and have a protest or anything. I just wanted to see how people behaved.
But you didn't really have a strong opinion either way.
No, I mean, yeah. I know little about the Colburn Pool. I should put that up front, So I don't know if I picked the best meeting.
No, I think so from my standpoint, I think knowing that it was a single issue and you got to observe everyone, talking through an issue that you didn't know a lot about or maybe just aren't really interested in, which, by the way, is 99% of our community.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's a pretty high number. I don't think it'd be 99%.
We have 110,000 people that live in our city.
You sound like Tom Duane. 100% of the people in my district want this. That's a really lofty claim,
what's 99% of that? Like
of 110?
Like 2,000.
I got to do math.
1,500. I don't know. So I mean, there's not more than 1,500 people that really care about it. Really,
I guess if you care about it, but it's a matter of people know about what's happening.
There's degrees, but if people aren't really interested in something, I think they kind of just it's background noise to them.
Yeah, I think the apathy of politics in general just seems at an all-time high on every level. I got to think on some level that people probably don't want to get engaged because they hear all it is junk. If that's the perception, you're like, I don't want to deal with that. That's got to be a pretty high percentage. I mean, when you look at like the national election, they say 50% of people didn't even vote. It's disturbing, but that happens all the time. When I first heard that, I'm like, that can't be right, but that's right.
No, we actually have high turnout here in northeastern Wisconsin, in Green Bay in particular.
Okay.
And I think we get like 30% for
president, not local though. Local's very low. Local is like piss poor low. It's really bad.
And I'll be honest, like when I go to vote for presidential elections or whatever, and I look at the aldermen, I look at things that are on there. I don't know those people. I'm kind of one of those, check, who's signed, and part of me looking back now is, well, this is really uneducated. You got to educate yourself.
So you got an education last night, though.
Yeah. I will say this. I think there's a lot of older generation, a lot of old thinking.
Dinosaurs.
Yeah, I heard that. I saw that bit too. And, I was saying, if you're young, let's say you're in your 20s or 30s or whatever, and you're like, I want to get involved in local politics. That's not a good sales pitch, what they're doing there. So I don't know how anyone, I guess another way of saying is I would commend anyone who's young and got a lot of fervor who would want to get into local politics, because on this level, man, like I said, it's just.
And you put yourself into that camp, even though you said earlier you're an old soul, but.
Yeah.
And what's your background? It's not in politics. So what is your background?
My background?
Yeah.
Well, I'm a marketing director for a local company. I'm a creative person. What I like to do, graphic design, art, drawing, music. I'm a very right brain person. I probably use like 3% of my left brain. I'm just kidding. But if it's creative, I'm interested is kind of my.
See, I think creative people make the best politicians, because you actually are probably more likely to be savvy versus just very black and white.
Perhaps. I think it's like there's a balance of, you have to be pragmatic. I think it was, I can't remember her name, but she was talking about nonprofits and how those things work. There is
Lisa K. Peters, who gave an amazing
she did.
testimony.
She gave a great speech.
She really did.
Probably the best of the night.
There's an element of common sense and emotion you have to tie together and balance. And typically what you get is people who are either way over on the common sense side or way over on the emotional side. If you can kind of get those more towards the middle, you get pragmatic, common sense type stuff. Now, it's easy to say, I suppose, but I would, in terms of the Colburn Pool, I needed to know more about it.
To me, that's interesting, because I felt that the emotions really kind of ran away. They ran kind of a little too intense.
Yeah, the comments about like, well, people can swim and they won't be taking drugs.
Okay, so let's so people maybe are listening, they don't understand what we're referring to. So last night the Green Bay City Council met to basically go over and rehash, are we going to overturn the mayor's veto on the Colburn Pool proposal? And so this is what the meeting was all about last night, and this is what we're referring to. And I think what's really interesting about what happened last night, we kind of kept track of the people that came in, who was for, who was against, where did they live, right? Mm-hmm. I've followed this pretty closely for a while, this argument, this debate, this proposal in general. It was fascinating to me last night. So what's on the table was this, Olympic complex. Mm-hmm. That is what that is. It's not just a pool. It's the Olympic complex. The proposal contains, basically everything you need to host swim meets. So this proposal is geared to swim teams. Anyone that doesn't think that's the case isn't following it close enough. But the people that came to speak and really and truly that supported the pool last night were really, their argument was on swimming.
Yeah.
It really was. For the first time, I think it maybe is by design. They had swim teams from outside of the city who have been speaking on a regular basis at meetings come in and, say we want this pool when, well, okay, how about if the county chips in then, right? Mm-hmm. That would be great. These people weren't there last night. I think that was by design. So if you listen to the arguments,
the
right?
narrative.
Right. They wanted a place to swim. They wanted a community pool. People that came forward that spoke last night, really and truly, if you listen to what they were saying, they wanted a community pool. Pretty much everybody did.
Yeah.
It was stories about children swimming. It was, a community asset. It was, so there's no way, if you listen to the testimony, that people should have approved that proposal. And I was so glad that they didn't, because that is really what is needed there. Now, I don't know if they're willing to, it sounded like the Friends of Colburn were even threatening a lawsuit, possibly. Right? That's what I heard from someone.
That was the implication, right? Like they're going to, which I don't know. I'm not an older person. I don't know how they all individually reacted to that. But boy, if you're going to try to extort a vote out of me, I'm going to not vote in your favor.
Yeah, I don't think that helped anybody to hear those threats. It doesn't. So really, you have to stick to, the agenda item, what's there, the best use of that area, obviously. But again, everyone pretty much that came to the podium to talk about that, they were asking for a community pool. If you listen to what they were saying,
Yeah,
that's what they were saying.
I agree.
And so it's interesting. I feel like that is really what is needed there. So especially when you think about, Ashwaubenon and is it Howard, other places that have basically, they have done a referendum to put through their own competition style pool, which is 25 meters. Yes. But to me, if you're asking for, $9 million of referendum, based money, you must be pretty confident that you can host swim meets with 25-meter pools.
Yeah. Another thing I guess I saw that I kind of learning as I go or learning as I went was, they didn't have, was there ever an actual proposal with money? And it sounded like it was from the get-go, it was like all these estimations.
Yep.
There wasn't a whole lot of concrete data from the aldermen and from, that's kind of what I took it.
Well, let's be real. This is what happened. Okay. Yeah. So 2 years ago, there was a meeting to approve $3.5 million with $1 million of raised money.
And they raised that.
Okay, they did. But here's the situation. There were no bids put out at that point. So we didn't even know what anything was actually going to cost. So when is it ever a good idea? In what world is it ever a good idea to take something, promise money, when you don't even know how much it's going to cost in the first place? And I will tell you this as well. I was at that meeting. There was no discussion. They didn't open the floor to the public. One alderman actually said something. It was Tim Duane. He said, I want to see an Olympic swimmer come out of Green Bay. That was it. They did not discuss that. That $4.5 million was never discussed at council. It was voted. Boom, it was done.
Interesting.
Without knowing the cost of the pool. The bids were not put out yet.
You know what they say, a goal without a plan is a wish.
Well, and that's what ended up creating all the dysfunction and the polarization and everything.
You know what's
that
ironic
happened.
about that, though? I remember on Broadway when I just simply said in a meeting that we should consider raising our rate for our bid on the businesses, and it was just like thinking out loud. It got published in the Press Gazette. The very next meeting, Guy Zima comes in with pitchforks of all the people that he rallied up to be against it, or vice versa. I'm not even really sure. But that was because they didn't feel like they were being included in the discussion. Most of them probably agreed with the things we wanted to do and why, and we had very clear justifications, even though this was in the early stages, not even being planned.
Yeah,
and they came in to voice their opposition to it. People just want to be heard.
Yeah, I hear that. And one thing I needed to learn too, kind of was where does representation end and begin, and what decisions can be made without representation? I have this idea in my head, and again, I'm such a newbie. I'm starting from zero, so it's like I'm kind of starting to see where that line of demarcation is of how far can they go without people getting involved, voicing opinions and things like that. Because, ignorance is bliss. If you don't know, whatever, and then you hear about something. Wait a minute, it's.
I will say this: it was very interesting to me to see Andy Nicholson, who is District 3 alderperson, how he actually voted last night. So he voted initially against the proposal that was done a few weeks ago.
Okay.
I thought for sure he was going to switch his vote because it's fair to say he's not the mayor's fan. So there was a perfect example of someone who said he was listening, to his constituents. He was actually hearing from them, and they said, we don't want this proposal to go forward.
Yep.
That was a pretty fascinating moment for me last night.
And kudos to him on that. That's the job.
Yeah, you're supposed to listen to your constituents, right?
Right.
It's what you shouldn't have to apologize for that, I guess, but
right.
But it's hard. That was a very emotional. That was a hostile, emotional room last night.
Yeah, and what's funny was I heard of it too, and even afterward, and I'm like, oh, I just thought this is what it is all the time. People are like, whoa, this was pretty heated.
Well, I think that because of the fact, the duration of the proposal, the amount of meetings these people had to go to. But again, I think, you might have leadership on an issue where you're voicing your opinion, but the reality is there's a process involved. And if you, again, no bids, here's some money.
That blows my mind.
Here's some money and there's not a bid. Next time, I hope we learn from this, that that doesn't happen again.
If you're going to use concrete, you should have a concrete proposal
Hello.
in front of you.
So let's talk about the vote. It was 6-6. So the people that actually voted to retain the veto, the people that said, yes, we should veto this proposal was Joe Moore, Randy Scannell, John Vanderleest, Bill Gallivan, Andy Nicholson, and Dave Nettig. And the people to, wanted the veto overturned was Barb Dorff, Guy Zima, Tom DeWayne, Mark Stoyer, Tom Slottick, and of course, Chris Weary. So those were the people that actually wanted the veto overturned and wanted to move forward with the proposal and bonding of all that money. I'm not really sure. I want to address this.
Okay.
I feel like there were some moments last night that would have, I'm not sure if it would have mattered, but there was a certain degree of disrespect in the room, obviously. Chris Weary addressing the mayor right off the bat, like right out of the gates.
Your Highness? Or
Your Majesty.
Majesty. Yeah.
Your Majesty. And then 3 seconds later, he wants to make sure that we have honor and integrity in this room. Okay, you cannot do both things. You cannot do that. So you make a decision to call someone Your Majesty. Right. We know you're pissed at him. It's like global. We know this by now, okay? Do you have to do that? Is it entirely possible that you maybe lost some support from people who maybe are just, in fact, looking at that proposal for what it is? And now they look at you like, you're a petty little alderman. So I just don't understand. And then secondly, why wasn't that a point of order moment? Why didn't someone actually say, guess what? Well, this is a very contentious issue. We have a lot of people in this room that have emotions. You started that. He kicked that into gear right away by saying Your Majesty. So to me, that was not, you have a certain degree of power. You've got a lot of support in this room. You don't need to go there. And then an alder that should have actually said to him, point of order, let's be professional here.
Yeah, I mean, again, being the first time, I'm like, this is how they must be,
So in a certain way, they are. There's a certain few of them, and honestly, this is the worst.
I've heard about the usual suspects.
This is the worst I've ever seen Chris Weary, though, and I was really disappointed in.
And it's not the time to do that. Now is the time to tuck your pants down, to get in there and
discourse.
And and own what you've. This is a person who, yes, give him props. He's been through this entire process with these people. You're their leader. Leaders don't make, asshat statements like Your Majesty. Okay?
I would agree.
Do it.
I mean, I don't.
But they're allowed to do things like that.
That's what I was going to say.
That's
they
the
do it
problem.
because they can.
Yeah.
Why does anybody do anything?
And did you bring this up when you asked someone else on the council about it afterwards? The response was
there wasn't enough time. I asked. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. I mean, there was a collective.
It's easier to just let it happen.
There was a collective gasp in the room. People, what?
And then I heard that one guy, shame, or something like
right,
that.
At the end.
Like, come on. I mean, so again, if we want people to come and be, we want people involved in local politics for the right reasons. We don't want them to come in because this is an entertainment and there's nothing good on TV. So I'm going to go to the city hall tonight. I mean, we want someone to come and actually be. We want them to be involved.
Well,
not just entertained.
But I would even take that further. I want people to be involved, not just because their kid likes swimming and they want to come and stick up for this one issue.
Yeah.
They don't know all of the other things that are going on from a budget standpoint. They don't understand that already, even without this, we're going to have to increase taxes next time.
Yep.
So those are important things to understand before you just say, well, my kid loves swimming, so all kids must love swimming, and you hate kids if you.
But if your kid loves swimming, then let's build this pool at $4.5 million.
Yeah, and that was the original amount. Again, with me not knowing nearly enough facts on my own, I would, in principle, that's.
But we have other swimming pools in Green Bay.
Yes.
there are.
And I mean, I swim, but I'm not.
There's certain undeniable facts. We're not at a lack of swimming pools in Green Bay.
Yeah.
See,
and that's not what they were asking for. Again, that proposal is an Olympic swimming complex. That proposal was not a swimming pool. And again,
isn't it an Olympic swimming pool?
Well, it is, but the reality is,
so they kept wrapping that in there, but
Okay.
they can't use it as an Olympic swimming pool because of the depth.
The depth, okay.
So they can't have meets there now. I guess.
I'd heard that, and so that's good clarification.
But then they always go back to, but the pool itself is only going to be $2.6 million or whatever the number is, but it's all the auxiliary
When was
stuff.
it? Was it built in the 50s, 60s?
A long time ago.
I think, yeah.
I mean, and again, I'm just asking this question.
No, it's good.
You know, it goes back to like it's open for basically 2 months out of the year because of the climate and outdoor pool. Back when they built it, I'm curious why they didn't. And again, I'm just asking the question. Why they didn't build it indoor back then.
It's so hard to say. I mean, it was so long ago. And
the costs of walls, I imagine it's infrastructure and costs of things like that.
And actually, I think as like adjusted for inflation, my gut is that Green Bay was smaller for one thing back then. And so fewer taxpayers. And I think I think construction is actually cheaper for some of that stuff now.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But, and again, me trying to be pragmatic hearing about it, the one thing I kept going back to was, it's only open a couple months.
Yep.
That was just one thing that I kind of mental note.
That's the biggest thing. You're not alone. Like that's what I kept saying. I'm like, why do you think it? We all want a pool. Outdoor pools are great because we want to enjoy every minute of summer. But let's be honest, we only have 2 months of summer.
Yeah, I hear you.
So there's money there, obviously. So the issue now is that there was money. There was money that was promised and there's money that was raised.
Sure.
So the $1 million from the Friends of Colburn, which again, I've said this before, it's, you've asked people to collect money. That was a mistake of the council, not sending bids out, but asking people to raise money. How did that happen? Who didn't take care of that? Okay, so besides that, you've got this money that's actually supposedly at the Greater Green Bay Community Foundation. It's $500,000. Okay, so now the threat was, well, they're going to take it to Sturgeon Bay. They're going to outsource it to other communities. And that was another threat, which is it's possibly a valid threat. I'm not sure because, again, we don't know. We didn't hear from these people, right? I mean, did you hear from donors at the podium? Because I didn't hear from any. So you have that, and why wouldn't they? Again, if you go back through the recording of the meeting, any of the donors, any possible donors listening, and you hear what these people wanted. They want a community pool. They want a place to swim. They want a place to be in the summer. They want a place to, the woman, I may not have agreed with all of her points, but the kick-ass older woman.
Oh yeah,
she's great.
Arthritis. That was.
I mean, oh my God, you're like 80 years old. You come to a council meeting and stand there for 20 minutes, whatever. I thought that was impressive to me. But obviously, she didn't get her way.
She said a number of things that were a little strange, though.
Which I just said. I didn't agree with everything she said, but
it wasn't so much that I didn't agree.
And
that's why I kind of did. I admire that passion. I'm like,
Right.
But then it was a lot of pontificating.
But her point was, really, if you listened to all of the narratives and all of the points and the general consensus of everyone's testimony was, we want a place to swim.
Yeah.
Period. So
it wasn't Olympic events and swim meets.
Right. With these people that donated, you'd still be donating to a very worthy, valid, proposal.
Yeah, I'd like to know from these big donors how much.
Why do you think donors didn't show up?
Donors typically don't want to be.
They want to remain anonymous.
Right.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
Right. I mean, and to some degree.
And I think they actually, I can't speak for all of them.
And I only say that because there's a lot of money,
But I would bet most of them don't care if it's an Olympic pool.
Yeah. You would think.
Some of them do. I'm sure they do.
But again, if they listen to the testimony at the city council meeting, they would hear that the general theme was, we just want a place to swim. So I know it would be something like, because of course we get this politic of, you're right, I'm wrong. We won't accept this because the mayor vetoed it. I mean, I hope that if that's the case, that they would accept a smaller venue. Now, this reminds me so much of, we just want a grocery store, right? Does this remind you of that? Because it sure did last night. It reminded me of, hey, we would accept, and I was one of those people, we would accept a $75,000 neighborhood 75,000 square foot grocery store, neighborhood market, style, versus a 150,000 square foot super center. So when you have something that you could actually scale back and still satisfy a large amount of people, but you choose not to, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't really. So what is your goal? What is your intention? What are the Friends of Colburn? What is their intention? Is their intention to put, something that kids can actually attend and swim? Or was it the Olympic complex? And if so, you were going to be facilitating to many swim teams outside of Green Bay. The county should have chipped in something.
Yeah.
And I think about the fact that Tom Duane, Andy Nicholson, and Guy Zima, who are on the city council, they also serve on the county board.
And one of them brought that up about, we have all these county parks and nobody says anything about it. Well, to me, that is part of the problem.
But I guess my point is,
this wasn't a county park.
You
and it
had
should have
3
been.
representatives that supported two that supported, but that serve on the county board, as well as Tom Sieber and Corey Campbell, who are on the county board as well. These people were very supportive of this Olympic complex. Okay. Why didn't the county chip in $1 million? Why didn't they show some good faith to give something to that proposal when you know damn well that those swim teams are coming from outside of the city of Green Bay? Nobody could answer that question for me ever. It was always, well, it's just not happening. That was it. It's not happening. There's no reason why they have to. It's like, well, they kind of do, because you're going to be helping swim teams outside of the city of Green Bay. And we're going to swallow the whole pill ourselves?
Yep.
No, we're not.
Now, was the goal too? I mean, I keep hearing, does it need to be a revenue generating?
No, it didn't. Nobody ever expected that.
Okay.
Because of that, we have to be mindful about the budget.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So you can't have a blank check on something that has no return.
Yeah. The business person to me says when something like that blasts that far out of budget, you got to call a timeout.
And it blasts that far out of budget because, again, we didn't have any bids.
So
Start ahead of the horse.
So as an outsider, I want to loop back to the behavior things.
Okay.
Because whatever side people are on, and I know it's, I don't know.
The behavior of the aldermen or of the people?
Whatever. As an outsider, and I keep calling you an outsider. You're not an outsider, but outsider to that meeting.
Okay.
What was your, give me some takeaways that you had there.
Like I said, the biggest thing was I really appreciated the passion. Again, going in there, I didn't know what to expect. I'm like, oh, hey, I kind of saw you sitting over there. I'm like, I'm going to sit here and just kind of watch. And then I didn't quite realize how big of a contentious thing it was going to become. So I keep going back to whether or not I agreed with somebody or not, the fact that they're that passionate about it, whether it's, you want to have good guided passions. You don't want to be misguided, but I really appreciated that. It was odd that, and again, just from my own kind of notes that I took, that the clapping and the cheering, which apparently they generally don't do, but they were allowing it this time.
I don't know why.
Okay.
I don't know why that
But
happened.
everybody who was doing that was involved with people who wanted to override the veto.
Well, until all of those people got applauded, then I went right along with applauding for the other side.
And again, I'm just
because it was ridiculous.
I'm just kind of like, oh, okay. I'm seeing who's applauding, who's not, things like that.
Right. So what should have happened there, I mean, in my opinion, is somebody should, the mayor or Tom Duane, president.
The gavel.
No, who's running the mayor was running the meeting.
Yep.
He absolutely should have, and he has in the past.
I know.
So I'm not
but
quite sure why
somebody should have done something.
Well,
Has he gotten to the
somebody.
point-
The mayor should actually have handled that because he's the chair. He's the one running the meeting.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Call order.
And he's done it
Right.
before in his defense. He has. So I'm not sure why he didn't do it.
Wow.
As he kind of, I don't want to say he's given up, but man, I had made the comment that it was almost like a bizarro Dean Martin roast, where he sits
Absolutely.
up there and I think at some point, again, whether you agree with him or not, or you're Republican, Democrat, or whatever, he seems to be pretty apathetic.
Well, they can't have it both ways. Okay, so it's his responsibility to do this, but every time he, uses his authority in any way, then they refer to him as Your Majesty.
That's shelf life. That's
mean,
familiarity,
if
agreeing, contempt. That's term limits needed. That's what that is.
If anything, he was less of a majesty last night than ever before.
Yeah.
And so for the name calling and the condescension, he screwed up on his campaign finance stuff. Everyone's well aware of that. I feel the punishment fit the crime. Some people don't. Regardless, he's still the guy.
Yeah. And I mean, to your point, whether or not he likes it or he's comfortable doing it,
Yeah,
you're right. You got to rein that in.
and then to add on top of that, this was a veto vote.
Yeah.
And evidently the first one that he's ever had.
He's never done that before. So you come into local government at a really interesting time, Andrew, because now, I mean, going forward, there's going to be a lot of, he's basically at all costs going to be put on display and held to
The next couple months should be very interesting.
The council is going to basically,
Yeah.
And I have my own opinions on that, but it would serve them well to not speak the way that they did last night, Your Majesty. If you really want something to be, honor integrity driven, then you have to model that. You have to be the one doing that.
Maybe I'm a pretty pragmatic person. I like to think that what you're talking about in my own head is common sense and decency. And I'm not trying to be condescending. But to what you're saying, if you're in a position like that, you need to act appropriately. And I see that as just common sense. Some people, are they just, what's the word I'm looking for? Constantly stirring the pot. That's just the way they are.
Poking the bear.
Or,
I don't actually like that term. It sounds really creepy.
Stoking
I
the
know,
fire.
but that's
poking the bear.
That's the term that people use for somebody, all the time. I've heard that. And I've had to run meetings that are subject to open meeting laws with media present.
Okay.
And maybe I just had good people at the time, but nobody ever felt the need to grandstand and be condescending.
I think it's a matter of feeling entitled to do that. That's what you're talking about here. They feel entitled to
or
do
ego.
That.
I mean, if you're in a position of power. I mean, I kind of try to look at it somewhat, taking a step back. I'm like, well, you're not a state senator. And I'm not trying to belittle their positions. But
they're community leaders.
Yeah, exactly. And again,
they're also community leaders that reap the benefits of people that are apathetic to local government. Let's be real. So they get into office many, many times because people aren't paying attention. They aren't involved. They aren't voting. So these are people that truly are still there because of the apathy.
That's a great point. They get in there because other people don't want to do it, who may be more qualified, more, just better dispositions and. I hear you. Negotiation tactics.
And even when there are qualified people, sometimes the incumbency is such an advantage.
Yeah.
So, there was a post on Facebook about term limits, and I'm all about that. I think we need term limits on everything.
Sure.
Seeing people on city council, individuals may think that somebody that's been on the board for 40 years, that's great, and he's a great representative, but that's a side issue.
Plus, they have nothing to go by. How do they know that someone else wouldn't do a better job? They've never been allowed to see that what happens. Yeah. I mean, it's not like they're not performing rocket science. I mean, if you can't even come to the wow, we need to actually bid out this project to see what's going to cost. No, we're going to promise money. I mean, when you can't even configure those things, then there's got to be people out there in the community that will do just as well, if not better.
Back to that base point about not getting the bid, the cost up front. How is that possible?
Well,
I know that's a very open-ended
part of it
question.
Is that things were sort of they didn't follow the normal routine, the normal channels, I guess. Mm-hmm. I mean, not that for a project like this that there is any set way to do it, I guess, but it was this outside group that was spearheading it.
Okay,
and I don't know who dropped the ball, but I think it's totally valid for city staff or even for the city council to think that these people that are spearheading it, they're commanding the project and they have the numbers and they're.
But we never actually saw any sort of study done, like a sustainability type of study done. We never, that happens frequently when there are big ticket proposals. You don't really always see that. And I think when you're asking for taxpayer money, that's what you should be seeing in the first place.
So you were seated in between my mom and my son. Mm-hmm. Any, were they quiet the whole time?
Yeah, they were fine.
Oh, okay. Well, fine is different than...
Your mom was there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was right next to me.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I borrowed her pen. I came totally unprepared.
Oh, that's right. She said she wants her pen back.
I did give it to her. But I got there, and I was like, I got nothing.
And so did you notice anything about the demeanor of the crowd? Any other comments about that? I mean, most people don't go to city council meetings.
Yeah.
So even though this was packed, there weren't more than 100 people there.
I hear you. I mean, just kind of looking around, subjectively looking at folks' faces, you could kind of tell who was on what side. the one guy who got up there, I don't know his name, but when he was kind of pounding his fist, the younger guy, and make it happen. I think he was the guy at the outburst at the end who just kind of Again, that's all I got to go
Can
by.
I just tell you that guy, I don't think he lives in the city.
Yeah, that's interesting too. When you get people, I live in Illinois, but I want this pool, which I'm not saying anything.
And everybody saw the man standing in the hallway, all arms crossed with his nice big gun on his holster. Yeah.
So I didn't see that until I saw.
How did you not see that?
Well, I saw the picture afterwards, so I don't know if I got there because
So this is a guy. Okay, I want to be honest with you. I did not speak last night at this meeting because this is a man who actually threatened me on Facebook, threatened my life 2 years ago.
What?
Yes, this is a fact.
Really?
Yes. So I was alerted to this by 2 different people who saw it. And it was actually on Chris Weary's Facebook page. As soon as I was able, I wish that they would have screenshot it because as soon as I went there, it was deleted, which is nice. Thank you. I'm assuming that was Chris Weary doing that. But this man he harassed me on all kinds of like Press Gazette, Facebook threads. I did not speak last night because and it doesn't take, much, but I was intimidated by the fact that he was standing there with this gun. This is a man who's also threatened police officers and their families. This guy is allowed to be in council chambers with this gun, and this is his history. Now, yes, we had a few police officers in with guns to, monitor the situation.
I just thought this was, gun-toting right-wing guy. I didn't know that he threatened people.
No.
Oh no, this guy literally. Okay, so I've blocked him.
See, that should
from
not.
everything.
That should not be okay.
No, it shouldn't be okay.
I believe in gun rights. That is not okay.
But honestly, you have the right to have the gun. Fine. How about my right to not be intimidated in that room?
That's if you threaten somebody, you shouldn't be able to be there. In any fashion. Like, that's crazy.
I'm like the ultimate pacifist. I've never even held a gun. So it's like, I mean, I don't want to say to each his own. It's probably not the right word, but, I'm not some crazy liberal who says, take all the guns or whatever.
No, I hate guns personally, but I think that people do have a right to them.
But do you really need to have that in that room? I mean, and I think we need to revisit this. No, we need to revisit this. So you're not allowed to have a gun in the Brown County Courthouse, right? You're not allowed to have that. So tell me how much different it is to get an entire, room full of people with a lot of, emotion and feelings, and they're basically there because something's important to them, right? And then you have, a plethora of personalities who don't necessarily like each other. You have a room that is, for all cases, toxic, and you are allowed to have firearms in there.
Did he come in the room, or is he just sitting outside?
He was standing in the doorway with his arms folded the whole time.
Which is almost more intimidating.
Yeah.
The only reason you put a gun in clear view is to intimidate people. There's no other reason why you do that. So that is but that's who this guy is. If you follow who he is, that's who he is. But again, why do we not have some sort of ordinance or policy where in the council room, we have armed guards, if you want to say, we have officers in there. So this room is typically full of emotion and agenda and really everything that, minus the alcohol, everything that would be, something that would create a perfect storm. It's not that different than a courtroom. Yeah. It's really not. So why do we allow that? And what can we do about that? I think that's something we should
I think it's totally different than a courtroom. Nobody ever says, Your Majesty, to a judge.
Well, it's possibly worse because the decorum is not there, right?
Right.
People aren't typically held to standards of any kind. No. And then you have, all of the players in there, it's just, to me, it's actually, there's never been a better time to revisit that, I think, policy. I think we need to do that.
Carry.
Well, or if your man, card is so, you got to have that gun to walk around, right? I mean, whatever. I'm sorry. Hide it. You don't have to show everyone. If you feel so afraid in life to go around, you have to have that gun strapped to you, then hide it. I don't want to see that.
I used to have a super soaker. 50.
Well, and not to mention, there were children in that room.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason. And somebody would argue and say, well, then you carry a gun to make yourself. No, I'm not interested in the Wild West. Okay. I'm interested in coming to a building where I can basically be involved in democracy. That's another reason why people, it's like the whole hyper intense, arena of what's happening there. We do not need to have someone standing there like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't know that, like, to your point, that he had threatened you. That's
And okay, and this is a whole nother topic, but this is a man who shouldn't have a gun, let alone be standing in fucking City Hall with his gun.
yeah.
There's no way that should be happening.
Wow. People that threaten, that's a different story.
Yeah.
So, any closing thoughts?
Well, I'm going to stay involved. I'll go when I can. Like I said, I really like your guys' podcast. I can give you kind of a short speech, if you will.
Do it.
I mean, I haven't been.
Darian didn't cut you off yet, so you're good. Keep going.
I haven't been involved politically much at all until the recent election. But it kind of, I have a daughter, and it just kind of made me, without getting into all the details and all those kinds of things, it really made me think and question certain things. And I just don't want to stand around, and if you want to do something, you have to get involved. So I'm a creative person. I'd like to use that tool in some way. But I don't know, I don't know what else is going to happen. I just know I want to stay involved, but I appreciate you having me on.
So if any other politically active people want to recruit you, how would you like them to get in touch with you?
Facebook or just email. thirdEyeGraphics.net is my personal business, freelance creative services. It's the best way to do it. I'm on Facebook. I have a website and Twitter and all that stuff.
And could you repeat your name again so people know?
Yeah, Andy Hetzel, Hetzel.
Awesome. And that wraps up Political Radar episode number 57. I can't count that high, so I have to think it through every time.
So you do it every week, huh?
Sometimes we double up, sometimes we miss a week. It's really depends on the topics. Excellent question. See, that's why I like new people. So if you'd like to get some show notes, politicalradar.com/57. And if you're watching this on YouTube, I feel sorry for you because I'm having a bad hair day. At least I was. I think
I
it's
did
fixed.
try to fix that.
I think it's fixed. I don't know. But there should be a subscribe button on that page. You should hit that. If you're listening to this on your iPhone, go to iTunes, subscribe. There's tons of ways to subscribe to this, and then you don't miss any episodes. And we try to be timely, so that helps you get them on time. You should check out the Political Radar community on Facebook. And
that's can we say that's actually that's where you've been, Andrew, you've been involved and you've been talking and having conversations on that page as well. So we found a citizen that is interested in democracy via the Political Radar community Facebook page.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
true.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. So thanks for being here today.
No, thank you. I can't wait to hear my voice later.
And when people want to yell at you about guns, where should they find you?
Yeah, and I'm sure they will be after this, but whatever. Just don't threaten me. Thanks. Rhonda Sitnikow on Facebook and at Sitnikow on Twitter.
All right. That's it. We're out.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Political Radar. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. To stay up to date, visit politicalradar.com or connect with us on Facebook or Twitter.